All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today we're heading out to the Akron, Ohio area to visit with John Massarelli, owner, founder of Massarelli Baseball and the Mash Factory. Coach, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Did I do okay on that intro? I heard you chuckle a little bit. Did I trip on anything?
No, you didn't.
Well, it's a little known secret. I told you before we hit record that, I'm not super great at the English language or any other language. So, big words might trip me. Big words like Massarelli. It's a whole lot going on in there.
You told me you were Cuban. You got to roll the R's.
No, I'm telling you, it's I'm the least Cuban guy you've ever met. And if the English language is hard for me, you should see what the Spanish language and any other language it is. Language is not my forte. My friends used to rip on me for struggling in high school Spanish, and I'd have to turn it around on them. They were like, well, hey man, like English is your first language, and I don't see you getting straight A's either. So, but yeah,
I remember taking 4 years of Spanish and not knowing anything, but then when I had to go, when I was playing with the Astros and the Marlins, I played in Venezuela. Then I had to learn how to count money real quick and order food real quick in Spanish. The first team I managed professionally, 19 of the 25 guys on the roster didn't speak any English.
Yeah, I think there's something
I learned to teach baseball in Spanish.
Total immersion is the only way. It's a forcing mechanism, and as you and I were discussing before we hit record, my parents spoke Spanish in the house, but I never was forced. They didn't force me to learn it, and nobody at school where I grew up was speaking Spanish. I could go all day and just speak English. So let's talk about that. Where were some of those first managing jobs that you were down coaching teams full of these Latin American players speaking Spanish? Tell me about that.
That was in 2000. The Astros hired me, and I managed the Auburn Double Days in New York. It was a short season rookie team, and so as anyone in pro baseball knows, you get before the draft, you're coaching all the Latin kids, or the Dominicans, Venezuelans, Puerto Ricans that come over and make the team to get to the States, and they come and you train with them for 6 weeks. So basically for the first 6 weeks before I even left for Auburn, New York, which didn't start until June after the draft, your whole team is Latin kids that are just coming over for the first time. And they speak a little English, but if you wanted to talk baseball with them and teach them how to hit, you had to use Spanish.
You better figure it out. Did you have any
I had to figure it out real quick.
Yeah, did you have some tricks that you implemented back then to figure out how to get what was in your head?
No, we had some older coaches in spring training, and I'd ask them, okay, what's this phrase? How do I say that? Like, mantengo las manos adentro. Keep your hands inside. Stuff like
not
that.
Bad. Hey, not bad. Phrases. Not bad. Not bad. Yeah, so a word at a time, a phrase at a time, and you learn one, you keep it in your back pocket, and then next time you need to tell someone to keep their hands inside, then you can lean on that. That's great. That's great.
The most fun part was going to the mound as a manager and
oh my God.
And talking and trying to get them to make adjustments in Spanish.
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of wondering if this new language skill back in the 2000s helped you, maybe pick up a lady or two back then. I don't know what your marital status was, but that could have been
my wife
a pretty
like that.
No, I guess she wouldn't have. So yeah,
I've been married to my high school sweetheart for 35 years. So
well, hey, me.
She she drops some Spanish lingo on me once in a while. So
hey, there you go. This travel ball talk is turning into a different kind of podcast here all of a sudden. Yeah, like Love Line or something. Cool. Well, that's awesome.
I'm gone from that. I've gone from that to full blown travel baseball. So
yeah, unbelievable, right? Well, let's go back. I'm kind of curious. You bring up your high school sweetheart. Where'd you go to high school? And obviously, you were playing baseball, but as many sort of, pretty good athletes, most guys back then weren't just playing baseball. You were probably, possibly playing football, basketball, running track, whatever else. Where'd you grow up? What'd you do back then?
I played all three. I went to Canton Central Catholic High School in Canton, Ohio, and played all the sports.
So you are currently living right where you grew up.
Correct.
That's awesome.
My wife is actually a teacher at Canton Central Catholic. She's been teaching there for 25 years. We live about 7 miles from this complex and about 5 miles from the high school. So, we're right where awesome. We started.
And
after traveling the world playing baseball.
That's wild, and you end up just a few minutes from home. So you grew up back in the day playing all three sports, but obviously excelled in baseball, liked baseball. How did the baseball path take you after high school?
I went to the University of Akron and got drafted there by the Astros my junior year, and then started my pro career from there and played 12 seasons professionally. Basically, I was a AAA journeyman, spent 6 years in AAA, always going to big league camp and then getting cut on the last day.
Oh,
that's
man.
my claim to fame.
That's
spent
a bummer.
Year in Asia. My last year went to Asia and then retired and started coaching professionally.
Tell me about that trip to Asia. That's not a story that comes up often.
Yeah, it was called the Taiwan Major League, and basically they went over there and they paid for everything, paid for your housing, paid you good money, more money than I was making at AAA at that time, and which is why I did it. I was 31 years old. My daughter was getting ready to start school, and kind of just said, "All right, let's go for it." We've done the AAA life forever. Didn't get an opportunity in the big leagues, so I said, "Okay, well, I'll go to the big leagues over in Asia."
And you did just one season over there?
I ended up over there. Went one season over there and said, "Okay, I'm done." It wasn't a plan. I still loved playing at that point in my life. It was the training anymore. I mean, people don't understand to play at that level. You're training basically all the time, 365 days.
Yeah,
you're training, and it gets hard. The games are fun. You still enjoy it, but you just get sick of constantly grinding in the weight room and off the field, just doing stuff like that. So that's kind of why I knew I was done. My passion was more in teaching the game.
When you mentioned that, something a sort of visual that came into my head is when you see a guy on TV hit an absolute rope, one hopper to the shortstop. He's not even out of the box, right? And the shortstop's already throwing the ball across the diamond. And you see these guys who maybe have never played baseball or haven't played baseball maybe since Little League or whatever, and they go, "Why isn't that guy running that ball out? He needs to run that ball out." You go, "You don't understand. This is the longest season in sports. He's been doing this every single day. He's probably been doing it every single day, 365, for a decade plus. Like, yeah, he's out. He's out. Like, give him, let him jog down the line and head back to the dugout." But it's like that was the visual that came up into my head. It's like,
people don't realize what the toll it takes on your body. And I always said for that, there's like two speeds. One speed that doesn't look good, when you do something like that, when you hit a missile to short and you know you're going to be out by 30 steps,
Yes.
there's one speed that doesn't look good.
Yeah.
And I would always tell my players that. And then there's another speed that you can get to that it doesn't really take a toll, but it looks like you're running hard. You know what I mean? It's like that three-quarter sprint. That's what I wanted to see. I don't want to see the little lackadaisical jog because it looks bad.
For sure.
And playing for people that are paying your salaries. You're playing for them, and so you got to give them a little bit of an effort.
Yeah. I don't know why when you just mentioned, hey, it's every day and you were getting a little bit tired. That was the visual that came up into my head. So just this real world example of sometimes people don't understand the amount of physical work that goes into being prepared to play at that level. And when the guy hits that rope, sometimes he knows his body doesn't need to do one more sprint that day. So you end up doing a year over there, and you had a daughter. Did she make that trip for the year with you? I'm assuming she did, right? You said she was about to start school.
Family. We had she was. I had told my when my daughter was born, when she gets to first grade age, if we're not established somewhere in the major leagues, then I'll probably be done because I don't want to put her through. It's a hard life on your family.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the timing of it. Is when I left Taiwan, my daughter left early to start first grade, and I said, okay, I'm going to call it a career and go into coaching.
Now, okay, we've somehow stumbled upon this thread we keep coming back to on this language. I have a couple cousins who grew up in Hong Kong. And a couple Cubans in Hong Kong totally makes sense. Except they're more gringo than I am. Except that since they grew up in Hong Kong, when they go to the Chinese restaurants here in the States, they're speaking fluent Mandarin. Did your little girl pick up some language skills while she was over there?
Yes, I learned to count because I was getting paid over there, so I learned how to count in Chinese.
Okay.
So funny story, we were out at a restaurant, and my daughter was 5, and we were trying to tell the waitress we couldn't remember the word for milk to get her some milk, and all of a sudden my daughter blurts it out. Neil and I, and we're like, we both looked at each other and we're like, how did she know that?
Yeah. Those are the type of stories that I hear from my cousins that were over there. Yeah, that's
still, my daughter, who's 31 now, still brings it up and gets mad that we didn't send her to like a Mandarin school and learn Mandarin.
Yep. Yeah. Cool.
Sorry.
Yeah. Cool. So to fast forward a little bit, you did a year over there. You came back. You decided to quit playing and transitioned into coaching. And that's when you hooked on with the Astros as a coach?
Yes, the Astros hired me. I started in the winter, Massarelli Baseball School, bought a building up in Akron, Ohio, to do lessons in. And then every year for 16 years after that, would just shut it down in the winter or in the summer, and I'd manage professionally.
That's incredible. So you came back, you started coaching, and you started a lesson business at the Massarelli Baseball.
Correct.
Simultaneously, that seems kind of funny to me. But you had you were sort of filling in those gaps on the shoulder seasons because the training facility would have been naturally pretty quiet during the summer, which is when you're managing for the Astros. And then when that season ends is when the training business would get busy. It's perfect complement.
It was, and then it must have been 10 or 11, I started to have a lot of students that were coming back and started hiring them in the summer when I was gone managing. So my last managing job was in Kansas City with the they're now called the Monarchs, independent baseball, and that's when I had resisted temptation to do travel ball.
Yeah,
because our lesson business was so booming that I was worried it would alienate people if we had a travel team. I mean, these parents are crazy. Sorry for the icebreaker, but
yeah.
Parents are crazy. And I would think they would get upset if they're training or they're playing against one of our travel teams and we give them lessons, like they'd hold it against us.
For sure.
We did our lessons. We did our lessons with all the travel team players in Northeast Ohio, not just ours.
Mm-hmm.
But one former student who was working for me in the summer while I was gone in Kansas City started the Mash Factory travel season. I said, "Yeah, let's do it." That was 2015. It's funny. Our first team has two big leaguers right now on, one for the Pirates and one for Dylan Dingler for the Tigers. Todd Blackledge's cousin, I'm trying to remember his last name, Anderson, for the Pirates, that were on our original travel team at 17U.
Pretty good.
2015, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But now
sure.
we've grown this year. We've gone from there to now we have 20 travel teams.
Now, so that first year, were your concerns and hesitations, did they come to fruition, or were you just making them up in your head? I mean, did you have anybody go, "Oh, I'm not coming back because you got teams now"? I doubt that happened, right?
It did not happen like I was worried about. It actually expanded our growth probably, because we weren't turning out a lot of teams, but the teams we were turning out were very talented. And so, what happens is they see, oh, where are they training at? And it kind of grew by word of mouth to now we have 10 instructors going in two different facilities and 20 teams. It's grown exponentially because of us starting the travel business.
Yeah, well, it's a model that is pretty common. That kind of two-sided model. There's definitely, I hear people who have the same hesitations that you have. Because they want to, they don't want to muddy the waters of, hey, we're open to everybody. And I'm assuming Massarelli baseball on the instruction side is still open to everybody, isn't it? It's not just a Mash Factory facility, right? Or is it? Or have you?
It is not.
Yeah.
No, we still do we do a lot of other organizations' kids.
Yeah, pretty normal. I actually see in certain pockets of the country, and sometimes I think it has to do with size of the organization versus size of the facility. If you have a pretty big organization but a pretty small facility, sometimes you'll see guys who will keep the facilities almost like a private club, because every hour in the day and every square inch gets used by those teams. But other than those rare circumstances, it's more so like the way you have it, where it's open to the public. But
right.
listen,
and it's kind of how we separate ourselves in at least Northeast Ohio because of that fact. The other organizations that have travel have maybe 1, 2, 3 instructors max, and not a big facility, where we have 10 different instructors all teaching the same philosophy in 2 different locations, and an indoor facility where you can get your work along with, obviously, the turf fields around this new facility.
Which is a perfect,
they get a ton of work.
Perfect segue. That was going to be the next thing I wanted to talk about. And by the way, I do such a bad job at this. The website is Massarelli Baseball. That's Massarelli baseball.com. And if you want to go find mashfactorybaseball.com is the team
Correct.
side of the. But if you go to that home page of the Massarelli Baseball, there's some photos that scroll across the top, and the one that sticks out is this big blue building. I've been to a lot of nice facilities. Listen, we've seen nice complexes, but can you try to paint a picture for those listening what this complex / facility looks and feels like?
Well, it's very unique in this area, and it's kind of where we got the idea in 2020, actually right before COVID hit, which was another podcast.
Yeah, good timing to do a huge
It wasn't real
capital
good
of
timing on
investment.
our part.
Yeah.
But our teams have been traveling at that time and going to these facilities in this area, mid-central Ohio to northeast Ohio, and without saying anything bad about any of these other places, they were garbage. weren't very parent friendly, bad concessions, bad restroom facilities, porta potties mostly. Horrible parking situations, and poor fields.
Mm-hmm.
And you're spending half the time ducking from the other game on the other fields, foul balls.
Yeah.
Partners, we came up with a plan. Let's build something that the parents are going to want to come back to, and the kids will love. So how we designed this building is an indoor facility surrounded by 3 fields. So the walls of the building are the outfield walls. So to clear a home run on the 200-foot fence, you got to get it up. It's like the Green Monster. You got to hit it up on the roof. We put a party deck on the one field in the middle. Then we put a bar, and then we had the idea of a restaurant. Now, all the upper floors, which are hitting tunnels, in addition to the ground floor, has garage doors with a bar that parents can just sit there, and they're part of the outfield wall, and they can watch their kid play. Then we decided, well, if we're going to do this, let's put a restaurant inside, connected to the concession stand, and then we made the whole restaurant on the inside glass. So it's the outfield wall on field 2 here. So you can sit down in field level, and you're part of the outfield wall staring through the glass. Just made it very unique, and we've gotten such great reviews on it from parents. They just love coming here.
I'm looking at photos of it on the website, and it is one of the coolest designs I've ever seen.
It is, and I'm not being biased.
It is. It's not.
I've been to complexes all over the country.
The standard is that cloverleaf design, right? That's what most people are used to.
Right. That's where you're ducking all the time.
Correct. What you've done is you flip the script, and you basically have put on those 2 main fields, you've put home plate at the far edges away from each other so that the person sitting behind home plate watching their kid isn't ducking the foul balls from the other game.
Right.
And I think that's
going on. 3 games going on, and you don't even know the other game's going on because you're not even focused on that.
Unless somebody hits a home run to dead center, and it's a pretty good poke. You're not, and there might even be a net. I don't even know. I can't tell from this photo. But unless somebody hits a home run to dead center, there's not going to be that foul ball situation, which is a big deal. I mean, it sounds silly, but when you're sitting here worried about just taking one in the ear hole at any given minute at one of those quads, it becomes a pain in the butt. But then, not only did you think about, you flip those fields around, but you put a pretty substantially sized facility right in between them, and then you made these sort of cool mezzanine level viewing area, bar, training area with views of the outdoor. It's just a very cool, very unique. I want everybody to go find the Massarelli baseball.com, and if you click where I ended up was on the if you click on the field and cage rental, there's a pretty good aerial view there, and you can get an idea that literally along the right field wall of one field and the left field wall of the other field, those are essentially the borders of the building. And it's a super cool layout. And then you've got 3 other fields right next door.
Correct.
So you end up with 6.
Yeah,
go ahead.
6 fields.
Go ahead.
We have 6 fields. We got one older field, one 90-foot bases field on the far end, and then 2 fields on the back end of the property, 5 and 6 we call them. So.
And are they all turf infields?
We have 2 dirts, the 5 and 6. Our phase 2 plan was to turf. We're going to turf 5 and 6 eventually, but we didn't do it initially until we got established.
Got it. And you guys are far enough north that weather does come into play, right? So it's nice to have that turf infield. You don't have to worry about dragging it in between games. You don't have to worry about getting the mounds ready, getting the home plate area ready. A little bit of rain won't rain you out. So that's pretty cool that you went with turf on those. Now, out of those 6 fields, it looks like 2 of them are 60-90s. Is that correct?
No.
Or is it just one? Only one. So you have 5 small fields, which
correct.
means
even the 60-90 is pegged for every level.
That's where I was going with this.
We do have a portable fence that we take out of the shed that makes it like a 200-foot fence. So when last weekend we had a girls tournament here, so all 6 fields are being used. We just put the portable fence up.
That's what I was going to ask you about was, oftentimes, especially this is called travel ball talk, I've been sort of tunnel vision on that high school age group for so long. I have to sometimes remind myself that the world doesn't revolve around the older kids. So you've got 6 fields where you can run games for either little guys or even softball. So is this just right. Are you just full of tournaments every weekend with 12 U's and fast pitch softball?
Yeah, between the girls and the boys, we had 26 weekends booked this summer, starting the first weekend of April, and ended about the last weekend in July, and then took a little break for fall. Then we've done 2 girls tournaments. The girls kind of seem to go more all year round than anybody else. We did their tournaments the last 2 weekends. And I've never seen so many college coaches. And all they do, they talk to me, they rave about how easy it is to scout here. They're undercover, they're inside the building, they can just walk around between the garage doors and the party deck, and they can see 3 games at once. So.
Oh my gosh, they can just sit up on the do they go up to the second level, or do they stay on the first level?
Yeah, they go to the second level, and they just walk back and forth.
That's awesome. By the way, there's a pub in there if they happen to get a little bit hungry or thirsty.
Yeah.
I mean, I say pub. You called it a restaurant, but I like to think of it as a pub.
That's in the weekends it's a pub, and during the week now it's an Italian restaurant.
That's well. Let me ask you. I remember visiting. I remember visiting a facility in West Texas in a pretty small town, and they had a restaurant on site, and it was such a good restaurant that I'd say a whole pretty big percentage of their business had nothing to do with the baseball facility. it was just town folk who'd come. Are y'all open? I know you're open to the public for dining, but would you say, is it attracting people who don't have a kid in there taking lessons or at a tournament? Are you getting the town folk to come out just to have a meal?
It's funny you say that, because we have. I don't want to give I don't know the number, but there's numerous residents here, mostly retirees or whatever, that they'll come in here on a Saturday and just sit at the bar, watch games, drink beer, have lunch, just because they want to watch the games. They want to watch the kids.
That's cool.
So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, you know, and it's another revenue source for what is otherwise a baseball business. You know, kind of in the same vein as I was just trying to remind myself that the world doesn't revolve around that recruitable high school age, that there actually is youth baseball. I have to remind myself that sometimes baseball businesses can make money with non-baseball activities, non-baseball, revenue streams, such as selling a chicken parm or a pint of beer. That's pretty cool.
And that was part of the vision. We wanted.
Say again?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we wanted different revenue streams. We wanted, the lesson business, the team travel business, the tournaments, and then you add the restaurant into it. So we were just trying to find different revenue streams to make it all work.
Now, one of the things that I see pretty often, and then you kind of touched on it before, is every weekend, unless you live in Atlanta, Georgia, you got to get in your car and hit the road, whether it's an hour, 5 hours, or 10 hours down the street. You got to get in the car and drive. Now I'm talking about that high school age group, right? And you want to hit the road. With that field combined with some local high schools, are you able to bring some of those weekends to your backyard to keep you sleeping in your own bed, compared to, before you had these fields?
No, that is our plan. We haven't done that yet. So far, mostly we have rented our fields out to tournament directors or tournament companies. Mm-hmm. But no, our plan is probably either next year or in 26 is to do that. And we have enough time. My brother's the head baseball coach at Canton Central Catholic. So, I know another coach at other local, very close high schools. I dealt with that. I know what you're saying. I coached the 15U travel team this summer, and we were going an hour in one direction one day and an hour in the other direction the next. And I was just like, this is a pain.
Well,
I'd rather it was funner at youth when you just went to a complex and you stayed there the whole time and just stayed in the hotel.
Yeah. And the thing is, we often sort of default to these events that have 100, 200, 300 teams in it. But you could, with your one field, your brother's field, and then, if you could score the field over at Akron, you get 3 fields, go get 12 or 16 teams. Everybody plays a game or two at each field, and that's a pretty nice weekend where you don't have to sleep in a hotel, Mm-hmm. So anyhow, just an idea, just making up things for you to do next year. Or for someone to do. Well, listen, I don't want to take up your entire afternoon. So I wanted to make sure I hit a couple of what I call my sort of standard questions, and I don't know if you had a chance to look them over. So they're not terribly complicated. So I'll see if I can't get a couple of these out of you. The first one is really asking about what sources are you referring to people? So the question is, what book, movie, website, Twitter accounts do you find yourself sharing with either kids or parents, players or coaches? Is there a book or a movie or any sort of information source that you find yourself sharing with people?
Oh gosh, I follow a bunch of coaches and hitting guru guys on Twitter and Facebook that I'm constantly looking at. But I can't, off the top of my head, give you any names. I can't even. The catching guy's one from Twitter. I follow him a lot. I do a lot of the catching stuff as an ex-catcher.
What is it with catchers? What is it with catchers becoming managers?
Because we're the smartest guys on the field.
Must be.
Yeah, that's the short answer.
Yeah, apparently. I was gonna try and pull up. Is it called the catching guy?
I think it is.
Let's see, the catching. Oh yeah, I know this guy. Let's see. Yeah, it's just x.com/the catching guy.
Okay.
At the catching guy. We used to call that Twitter.
I got some good I do some good reposts on that stuff if you follow me at Johnny Maz 6.
Well, here you go. Let's see.
Twitter.
At Johnny MASS 6.
ZZ.
Oh gosh. You threw me a curveball and I swung right through it. All right. Just followed you there. At Johnny Maz with 2 Z's. At Johnny Maz 6 with 2 Z's. Make sure you give Coach Massarelli a follow there. All right, let me ask you another question here, and we'll see where this takes us. What's one change that you think could be made to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact?
I think more of the problem is with the older teams, like we talked about, not securing fields. If you Google what's the hardest part about travel ball, it's finding fields, or running tournaments, it's finding fields. So that's the biggest problem. The other biggest problem is the parents, but I don't know if you're ever going to solve that problem.
Well, why is securing fields such a tall task? I mean, there's fields at every high school, right? And then sometimes they just don't want to let people get access. What is the red tape there? Are they scared of somebody getting hurt? Is it a risk mitigation situation?
I think you get into situations about who's getting the money. I think that comes down to a lot. If it's city owned and how much they're getting, who's going to run the tournament there, the personnel involved in being there, that takes some issues. I mean, I know high schools that they wanted to keep all the revenue from the tournaments, and they wanted the high school kids and or coaches to run the tournament, but they wouldn't get any compensation for spending their Saturday and Sunday at the field. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like,
so why would they do it?
Why am I going to take my weekend?
Exactly. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be here all day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but you're going to keep all the money.
And the money goes to the school.
Interesting.
I mean, charity's fine, but geez, that's a lot to ask.
This is not the first time that field access has come up. But hey, you've gone out and done something about it. You made your own fields, so that alleviates some of the pressure on your guys. but it's still at the high school age group. You have one field. You
Right.
need a little more than that if you're going to run an event. But at least your guys get some field time. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's our biggest advantage here is when we train in the winter before their high school season. I mean, we'll have plenty of days where it's 45 degrees or above and dry, and they can just go out and get ground balls. There's not many places. Well, there's no places around here that you can do that unless you're getting on someone's high school field that has field turf. But
yeah, our listeners
so
in South
memberships.
Our listeners in South Florida are bundling up at the thought of that. They don't understand how far north you are, where a 45-degree day is balmy. And since you've got the turf, you can go outside. You're going to be nice and dry. Bring dry balls with you, and you're in business.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. That field makes everything just a little. That complex right there makes everything a little easier on your guys. I like that.
Yep.
Well, what's next? What's any other big projects on the horizon? I mean, a six field complex with a whatever it is, a 10,000 square foot or whatever facility. That's a pretty big thing. Do you have any other projects like that coming down the line? Or is it just, hey, we got to maintain what we have?
Yeah, right now we're just trying to still do the numbers and maintain what we have and get established and get going, get the restaurant fully functioning all year round. But I think if I could give long-term projections, we when we built this thing, we did the electricity for lights, or what do we call that? The plumbing for the lights. So every field has basically all we got to do is buy the poles and stick them in the ground.
Yeah,
wires for lights. So I think that's a long-term plan, and then probably we're grassing the outfield now, but I could see us turfing the outfields too, and not have the expense of mowing.
Both of those are definite luxuries. You know, that lengthens the time you can use the fields for both reasons. Yeah, that'll be nice. I'm guessing you're not out there on a lawnmower much. I hope you have staff for that.
I am not. I am not.
Got it. Yeah. Well, listen, man, I've enjoyed this, and I hope that you and I can have more of these conversations. Before we hang up today, do you have any parting words of wisdom if there's any parents, players, coaches who still might be listening?
Oh, gosh. The only thing I don't – the parents shouldn't want it more than the players.
So true.
That bothers me. I mean, there's more to life than baseball. And if your kid's not into it, so what? Let them have fun. And that's the biggest thing I try to tell our young MASH teams, our 8, 9, 10. I said, let them have fun. Doesn't matter how many games you win. No college scholarships can be given out to your kid this year. Just let them have a good time and enjoy the game. So that by the time they get to high school, they're not burnt out.
Yeah.
They hate it because the parents are on them constantly that you didn't get 2 hits or you're not doing this, you're not working hard enough. Let them have a good time. Drives me crazy. That's
great advice. Glad you brought that up. Coach, I appreciate you doing this with me. Let's end the call there, but don't hang up. Hang on. Give me one more second. Hang on 1 second.